and senior immigration lawyer with GS and Immigration. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon so you can continue to watch our extremely interesting videos about UK visa and immigration advice. Today's topic is domestic abuse, and with particular focus on transnational abandonment. This route, domestic abuse, used to be called domestic violence, but the terminology was changed because it didn't require violence. Domestic abuse could come in different ways, psychological ways, non-physical ways. So nowadays we typically refer to it as domestic abuse. Do understand women can apply for this, and equally men. If the applicant holds leave as a partner of someone who is British, settled, holds qualifying pre-settled status, is a refugee, plus a couple of other obscure categories, if the relationship is broken down, this does not include fiance or prospective civil partner, must be more solid than that, spouse, civil partner, possibly an unmarried partner. If the relationship has broken down because of domestic abuse, which, as I say, doesn't have to involve physical violence, it may, it doesn't have to. If the relationship has permanently broken down, for example, the applicant has left the family home, or maybe the other party has left the family home, not friends, don't like each other anymore, applicant is probably frightened of the other partner in one way or another, and that application for settlement for domestic abuse becomes a possibility. Of course, like everything else, it has to be proved to I wouldn't say to a very solid extent, but to a reasonably solid extent. Now, these rules have been around for a few years. Very, very recently, last month in fact, the Home Office has widened the rule, widened the scheme. A person who has gone abroad and who has suffered domestic abuse from their partner has abandoned them abroad, probably taken away their passport, they've been abandoned abroad, they can't get back to the UK, they can equally make an application under the domestic abuse settlement route. Now, as I say, this is a route for settlement. If it's made in the UK, then the normal thing would happen, if the application was successful, the applicant would be granted settlement. If the applicant is outside the UK, they can apply for settlement in the same way. If their application is successful, they will be granted indefinite leave to enter, which means that they are granted settlement outside the UK. They will get a visa, which is an indefinite leave to enter visa. They'll be able to come to the UK with that visa, and they are already settled before they arrive in the UK. Now, Mr. Shah, this is an interesting topic. Breaking ground, new law. Did you have any interesting questions about this?
Yes, please. This is quite an important topic, and it does affect a lot of people's personal life to very big extent. I would like to ask, if the spouse is abandoned outside, are they able to use some sort of online form to make this application, or they have to use some paper form to do?
No, I think it's an online application like everything else. I mean, they might well instruct a lawyer. I would probably imagine they would instruct a lawyer, preferably a British lawyer, but you never know. But it's done in the normal way. I mean, you know, Mr. Shah, some applications for indefinite leave to enter are already possible. Adult dependent relative, the applicant applies for indefinite leave to enter. So this is all something already exists.
Sure. Now, one would imagine that if someone is being abandoned outside the UK, that person on the visa may not know it, that they may be traveling to whatever country they may be traveling to and may not be coming back. So they may not have a lot of evidence to prove that they are a victim. Do you think the Home Office will be a bit more flexible in that situation compared to someone in the UK?
Yes, I think they probably will. I would have thought, I mean, this hasn't happened yet, we don't really know, but I would have thought if you've been abandoned outside the UK by your partner, that is already to a large extent, some form of domestic abuse to begin with, isn't it?
Sure.
I would have thought so. Probably the Home Office is going to be quite flexible about this.
Sure. I mean, usually the sponsor, what we have experienced and seen, is usually in control of immigration matters of the spouse. This perhaps give them a bit more control to abuse the partner. And
typically they take away the passport. Not always, perhaps, but typically the person is stranded. They've got no passport. They've got no way of getting back to the UK. You can't get back to the UK without a passport very easily. But if the person doesn't have a passport and they apply for domestic abuse route, the Home Office, I'm sure they're going to have to be very, very, very flexible about that.
Sure. And maybe it's prudent for people who come on a spousal or partner visas to be in control of their own immigration matters and look after their documents themselves if they can.
Well, if you're being threatened, some partners, I mean, typically a man, but it could be a woman, and I've done cases where it's a woman, they dominate, they threaten, they may threaten physical violence. It's easy to say that, but it's difficult. However, let me say, general overarching principle, the domestic abuse route is something that the applicant can be in control of. The other partner is not in control of it. They don't have to know, they don't have to be told that this application is being made. They're not in control of it. In an overarching way, a domestic abuse visa is something that the applicant is in control of. They can do it the way that they want. They're not in any way controlled by the sponsor. They don't have to get any permission or agreement. The sponsor doesn't have to know about it.
Sure. I understand one of the requirements for this category is to be on a relevant leave, such as a spouse.
Yes.
In these sort of situations, I would imagine it's very possible that the applicant's visa may have been run out intentionally by the sponsor.
They can still apply. The law doesn't require them to have current leave. That was always the case.
That's great. So it doesn't matter. They may have overstayed, or they may be outside the UK and the visa
they
might
have overstayed in the UK, but that's not going to be an issue. Their visa might have expired. That's still not an issue. The law was always that way.
Sure. With these applications inside the UK, we understand the applicant may be able to access public funds and accommodation. When someone is overseas, I guess there is no monetary help from the Home Office for them to make such an application.
Well, you can't claim benefits in the UK from abroad, I wouldn't have thought.
Sure. So they would have to arrange their own legal fees, their own ticket once the visa is approved, and then travel back to the UK.
I guess that is correct. But let's say this law has only just been published. We'll see how it develops and see how it goes. I'm sure that the Home Office is going to be very, very flexible with this, because this whole thing comes from a decision in the High Court. The High Court was very sympathetic towards people who are in that position. I'm sure that the Home Office's policy will reflect that High Court judgment.
Sure. And sometimes there are children involved, could be stepchildren of the sponsor. I guess they would be able to make the same application as the main applicant.
They can apply along with the main applicant. They may have a few funny extra rules of their own, but they will be able to, in a general sort of way, they will be able to apply along with the main applicant.
Sure. Another question. So assuming someone applies for this visa, they get indefinite leave to enter, they've come to the UK, they deal with the trauma they may have gone through, they want to move on in their life, would they be able to sponsor any future partner they may have from overseas if they meet all the visa requirements?
Yes, they hold settlement. They would be able to sponsor under Appendix FM.
Fantastic. I think this is quite detailed and have elaborated a lot on this topic.
It's just new law.
Yes.
We don't know how it's really going to happen because it hasn't happened yet. Probably we will be able to update the readers and the viewers as time goes by.
Fantastic. I think there would be a lot of interest from people in this topic, and we'll certainly be keeping them up to date. Thank you so much for today's vlog, and we see you in the next one.
My pleasure. See you next time.